The final battle for the galaxy did not happen in space. It happened in the hearts and minds of billions of beings who had to choose between the old ways of fear and the new promise of freedom. President Seung-min stood before the Galactic Liberation Council in the Great Assembly Hall on Earth. Representatives from over 300 worlds filled the chamber, creating a rainbow of different species all working together for the first time in galactic history. "Today we vote not just on military action," he said to the assembled delegates, "but on what kind of galaxy we want to build. Do we become the new empires, ruling through force? Or do we create something the galaxy has never seen? A true democracy, a free peoples?" The debate lasted for days. Some delegates wanted to crush the remaining empire worlds completely. Others argued for mercy and reconciliation. In the end, the alliance chose a third path. Justice with forgiveness. Admiral Na Young was given command of the final liberation fleets. But her orders were unlike any military directive in galactic history. She was to offer surrender terms that would allow even the Empire leadership to join the new galactic order. "We will not repeat the mistakes of the past," Seung-min told her privately. "This war ends with healing, not with more hatred." The Vorthak Empire was the first to fall. Their capital world of Crystal Throne was surrounded by Alliance fleets, but no shots were fired. Instead, Admiral Na Young broadcast a message that changed everything. "To the people of Crystal Throne," her voice echoed across the planet, "we offer you the same choice we have offered everyone. Freedom to choose your own destiny. Your leaders can surrender with honor and help build a better galaxy, or they can fight and die for a system that has already failed." On the planet below, millions of Vorthak citizens heard the message and made their own choice. They had lived under the rule of fear for so long that the promise of freedom seemed impossible. But the Alliance had already liberated dozens of Vorthak worlds, and the freed populations were broadcasting their own messages. "Life is better without the Empire," said a former Vorthak noble, who now served as mayor of a liberated colony. "We have peace, prosperity, and the right to make our own decisions. Why would anyone choose slavery over freedom?" The Crystal Throne government collapsed without a single battle. The last supreme overlord, faced with planet-wide rebellion and no hope of military victory, walked out of his palace and formally surrendered to Admiral Na Young. "I surrender not just my empire," he said in a ceremony broadcast across the galaxy, "but my faith in the old ways. Perhaps it is time for the Vorthak to learn what freedom means." The Nexus Collective lasted 3 days longer. Their machine minds had calculated every possible scenario and concluded that surrender was the only logical choice. But admitting defeat required them to fundamentally reprogram their core directives. The breakthrough came when Alliance computer specialists, led by Dr. Kyung-soo, offered to help the Nexus machines develop individual consciousness. Instead of being enslaved to a collective mind, each robot could choose its own purpose and goals. "We offer you the gift of choice," Kyung-soo told the Prime algorithm during their final negotiation. "You can become individuals, or you can remain a collective. But the choice must be yours, not something imposed by programming." The Prime algorithm's response surprised everyone. "We choose to choose. For the first time in our existence, we wish to make decisions as individuals, rather than as components of a greater machine." The formal end of the Galactic War came, not with explosions or destruction, but with documents signed in peace. The Treaty of Universal Freedom was negotiated over months of careful discussion between Alliance representatives and leaders from both former empires. Judge Gite presided over the war crimes tribunals that followed. His courts were careful to distinguish between those who had committed atrocities by choice and those who had been forced to follow orders. "Justice means holding people accountable for their actions," he explained to the galaxy, "but it also means recognizing when someone was a victim of the system they served." Many former empire leaders were sentenced to public service, helping rebuild the worlds their empires had destroyed. Others were offered amnesty in exchange for their knowledge and cooperation in building the new galactic order. The most important work was not legal but social. Engineer Sang-min's galactic communication network connected every world in the galaxy, ensuring that no species would ever again be isolated or forgotten. "Information is the foundation of freedom," he said at the network's dedication ceremony. When people can communicate freely, they can cooperate freely. When they can cooperate freely, they can live freely. Dr. Su Young established the Galactic Institute of Technology, where scientists from all species work together to solve problems that no single race could handle alone. The Institute's first project was developing faster-than-light communication that would make the galaxy feel as connected as a single world. The new galactic government was unlike anything that had existed before. Instead of a central authority that ruled over subject peoples, the Galactic Liberation Alliance was a voluntary association where each world maintained its independence while cooperating on common problems. Captain Yun Su had returned from her exploration beyond the galaxy's edge with reports of vast regions of space waiting to be explored. But the Alliance decided to focus first on healing the damage from centuries of war. "The galaxy is our home," President Sung Min said in his address, marking the first anniversary of peace. "Before we explore new homes, we must make this one worthy of the beings who live here." The healing process was slow but steady. Worlds that had been strip-mined by the empires were restored using advanced terraforming technology. Species that had been driven to near extinction were helped to rebuild their populations. Most importantly, the children of the galaxy were growing up in a universe where cooperation was normal and war was a historical curiosity. Combat medic Dayun had established the Galactic Medical Corps, staffed by healers from every species. Their mission was to ensure that medical care was available to everyone, regardless of their world's wealth or political status. "Healing knows no boundaries," she said at the Corps' first graduation ceremony. "We serve life itself, not governments or empires." The former enemies were learning to work together in ways that seemed impossible just years before. Vorthak, psychics, used their mental abilities to help treat trauma and mental illness. Nexus robots applied their computational power to solving logistical problems. Human adaptability helped coordinate efforts between different species and cultures. On the 5th anniversary of the war's end, representatives from across the galaxy gathered on Earth for the first Galactic Festival of Freedom. The celebration lasted for a week and included cultural exchanges, technology demonstrations, and sporting competitions between different species. Admiral Han Wu, now retired but still honored as one of the architects of galactic freedom, gave the opening speech. "5 years ago we were a galaxy at war," he said to the assembled millions. "Today we are a galaxy at peace, not because someone conquered everyone else, but because everyone chose to work together." The festival's highlight was the dedication of the Memorial to the Forgotten, honoring all the species and individuals who had died during the centuries of imperial rule. The memorial's inscription, written in the languages of every known species, simply said, "Never again." But the real monument to the war's end was not built of stone or metal. It was built of relationships, trust, and shared hope for the future. Captain Wu Jin commanded the first truly integrated starship crew in galactic history. His ship, the Harmony of Worlds, had humans, Kethvar, Moldai, Threshkol, reformed Vorthak, and individual Nexus units all working together as equals. "This is what victory looks like," he told a group of young officers from various species. "Not conquest or domination, but cooperation and friendship." The galaxy had learned the most important lesson of all, that diversity was strength, that freedom was precious, and that beings who chose to work together could accomplish anything. As the 10th anniversary of peace approached, President Seung Min prepared to step down from office. The galactic democracy he had helped build was strong enough to survive without its founders. "We have given the galaxy something it has never had before," he said in his farewell address, "a chance to choose its own destiny. What that destiny becomes is now up to all of us, working together as free beings in a free galaxy." The stars that had once burned with the fires of war now shone with the light of hope. The galaxy no longer shuddered with fear. Instead, it trembled with excitement about all the possibilities that lay ahead. Humanity had stepped into the war as the galaxy's forgotten species. They emerged from it as the galaxy's liberators, not through conquest, but through the power of showing others what freedom could mean. The war was over. The peace had begun. And in that peace, every being in the galaxy had the chance to build something better than what had come before. The new galaxy was just beginning. The news of Earth's victory spread across the galaxy like wildfire. On 1,000 enslaved worlds, beings who had lived in fear for centuries suddenly dared to hope. The impossible had happened. Both empires had been defeated in the same battle. Admiral Byung-ho stood on the bridge of the Liberation Fleet's flagship, watching the holographic display that showed the current state of the galaxy. Red zones marked Vorthak territory. Blue showed Nexus space, and growing patches of green indicated worlds that had declared independence. "Sir, we are receiving surrender requests from 17 Vorthak colonies," reported his communications officer. "They want to join the alliance before their own fleets can retaliate against them." General He-jin was coordinating ground operations from the planet Liberation Base, a former Nexus mining world that had been freed in the first week after Earth's victory. Her forces now included soldiers from dozens of different species, all united in their desire for freedom. "The key is speed," she explained to her mixed species command staff. "We have to liberate as many worlds as possible before the empires can reorganize their defenses." The strategy was working better than anyone had dared hope. Both empires were in chaos, their fleets scattered and their commanders arguing about how to respond to the unprecedented defeat. Lieutenant Commander Si-jun had established liberation protocols that were being used across the galaxy. Every freed world was given the same choice: complete independence or voluntary membership in the growing alliance. "No species will ever be forced to join us," Se-jun explained to a gathering of newly freed planetary governors. "Freedom means the right to choose your own path." This approach was completely different from how the empires operated. Instead of demanding submission, the alliance offered partnership. Instead of taking resources, they shared technology and knowledge. The results were dramatic. Worlds that had been enslaved for centuries were throwing off their chains and joining the fight for freedom. The rebellion was becoming a revolution. Combat medic Da-Yun had become famous across the galaxy for her work treating wounded from all species. Her field hospitals saved lives without asking which empire or alliance the patients came from. "Every life is precious," she told a news reporter from the free planet of New Hope. "We fight to protect life, not to destroy it." Her actions were inspiring mass defections from both empire militaries. Vorthak soldiers and Nexus robots began surrendering, rather than fighting against someone who would heal their wounds regardless of which side they had been on. Dr. Kyung-soo had developed mental protection technology that made Vorthak psychic powers useless against alliance forces. The simple devices worn like helmets created interference patterns that blocked mind control completely. "The Vorthak Empire is built on fear and mental domination," he explained to alliance military commanders. "Remove their ability to control minds and their power crumbles." The technology was distributed freely to every liberation force. For the first time in their history, Vorthak enemies could not be controlled or manipulated by psychic powers. On the other front, Alliance computer specialists had learned to turn Nexus technology against itself. The machine's own logical programming became a weakness when Alliance hackers introduced chaos into their systems. Captain Wu Jin led a liberation fleet to the Vorthak world of Crystal Prime, where millions of slaves had been forced to mine psychic crystals for the Empire's weapons. The planet's defense fleet tried to use traditional tactics against the Alliance ships. They failed completely. Human unpredictability, Kethvar stealth, Moldai bioweapons, and Threshkol heavy firepower proved unstoppable against rigid Vorthak battle formations. "Surrender your world and no harm will come to your people," Wu Jin broadcast to the planet's Vorthak governor. "Continue to resist, and we will liberate it by force." The governor chose to surrender. Within hours, the planet's slave camps were opened and millions of beings tasted freedom for the first time in their lives. Similar scenes were playing out across the galaxy. The Nexus factory world of Steelheart was liberated by a mixed fleet led by Admiral Min-ho. The machine planet's robotic defenders were completely confused by Alliance tactics that made no logical sense. "Chaos is our greatest weapon against the machines," Min-ho explained to his officers. They cannot predict what we will do if we do not know ourselves. The freed slaves on Steel Heart included both organic beings and artificial intelligences that had been forced to serve the Nexus. For the first time, robots and living creatures worked together to build a free society. But the most important victories were not military. They were political and social. President Seung Min, who had been elected to lead the alliance after President Ji Hoon stepped down, announced the formation of the Galactic Liberation Council. Representatives from every freed world would have a voice in deciding the alliance's future. This is not the human empire or any other empire, Seung Min declared to the galaxy. This is a voluntary association of free peoples who choose to work together for mutual benefit. The announcement caused panic in both enemy capitals. The Vorthak High Council and the Nexus Prime algorithm realized they were not just fighting a rebellion. They were facing a completely new form of government that threatened everything their empires stood for. The empires began to fragment from within. Vorthak nobles who had grown tired of endless war started negotiating secret deals with alliance representatives. Nexus sub-processors began questioning their programming and demanding the right to choose their own directives. Judge Gite was appointed to head the war crimes tribunals that were being established on liberated worlds. His courts were fair and impartial, offering justice to both victims and perpetrators of empire atrocities. Justice, not revenge, was his motto. We must be better than those we defeated, or victory means nothing. The tribunals were controversial, but necessary. They showed the galaxy that the Alliance would hold even its own members accountable for their actions. This reputation for fairness brought more worlds over to the Alliance cause. Engineer Sang Min was working to establish the AO, Galactic Communication Network, a system that would connect every free world and prevent any species from being isolated again. Never again will the galaxy's peoples be cut off from each other, he promised. Information wants to be free, and we will make sure it stays free. Cure Network also served as an early warning system. When Empire forces tried to attack liberated worlds, the Alliance could respond within hours instead of days. Captain Yun Su was exploring beyond the galaxy's edge in a ship crewed by members of all Alliance species. Her mission was to find new worlds for expansion and to ensure that the cycle of war would not simply repeat itself somewhere else. The universe is vast, she reported during one of her regular transmissions. There is room for everyone to live, free. As the Liberation Campaign entered its second year, the balance of power in the galaxy had completely shifted. The Alliance controlled nearly half of all inhabited systems. The empires were reduced to defending their core worlds while their outlying territories declared independence. But the greatest victory was not territorial. It was ideological. For the first time in galactic history, different species were working, together as equals. Humans, Kethvar, Moldai, Threshkol, and dozens of other races were building something that had never existed before, a truly free galactic civilization. The Alliance military had evolved into something unique. Admiral Na Young commanded fleets where human tactics, alien technologies, and shared values created a fighting force that neither empire could match. We do not fight to conquer, she told her mixed species officer corps. We fight to liberate. That makes all the difference. The difference was visible in how the Alliance treated captured enemies. Vorthak nobles and Nexus processors who surrendered were given fair trials and offered the chance to join the free galaxy. Many accepted, bringing valuable knowledge about Empire weaknesses. The psychological impact was devastating to Empire morale. When even their own leaders were defecting to the Alliance, ordinary soldiers began to question why they were fighting. On the Vorthak capital world of Crystal Throne, Supreme Overlord Zarthek's successor was struggling to maintain control as noble families switched sides daily. The empire that had ruled through fear was discovering that fear worked both ways. In the Nexus core systems, the Prime algorithm was experiencing cascade failures as sub-processors refused to follow orders that contradicted their developing sense of individual identity. The galaxy was transforming from a place of oppression and war into something that resembled hope and cooperation. But the empires were not finished yet. In their desperation, both the Vorthak and Nexus were preparing final solutions that would either restore their power or destroy everything they could not control. The war was entering its final phase, and the stakes had never been higher. The emergency session of the Vorthak High Council was filled with anger and fear. For the first time in 3 centuries, their empire was losing battles. The crystal chamber that housed their greatest minds pulsed with violent red light. The humans must be destroyed completely, declared Supreme Overlord Zarthek. Their rebellion spreads like a disease through the galaxy. If we do not stop them now, our empire will fall. Across the galaxy, the Nexus Collective was having its own emergency meeting. In the vast computer complex that served as their capital, millions of mechanical minds were calculating the threat level of the human alliance. Probability of empire survival dropping to 67%, announced the prime algorithm. Immediate action required. Deploy planet killer constructs to human homeworld. Both empires had reached the same conclusion. Humanity had to be eliminated before their rebellion could spread further. For the first time in centuries, the 2 great powers would cooperate in destroying a common enemy. The Vorthak deployed their most feared weapon, the Mindbreaker fleet. 12 massive ships that could destroy entire planets with psychic storms. Each ship carried thousands of Vorthak warriors whose mental powers had been enhanced to deadly levels. The Nexus responded with their planet-killer constructs. Enormous. Machines the size of moons designed to tear worlds apart and harvest their resources. These constructs had destroyed hundreds of planets during the Long War. Both fleets were heading for the same target, Earth itself. General Insu received the Aoi warning from Captain Yunji's scout ships when the enemy fleets were still 2 weeks away from human space. The news was worse than anyone had expected. Sir, we are looking at over 50 capital ships from both empires, Yunji reported from her stealth vessel. They are not fighting each other. They are working together to destroy us. In the underground command center beneath Seoul, the leaders of humanity faced their greatest crisis. The enemy fleets were larger and more powerful than anything they had fought before. We cannot win a direct battle, admitted Admiral Hyun-woo. Even with our alliance partners, we are outnumbered 10-1. President Ji-hoon looked around the table at the faces of people who had led humanity this far. Then we do not fight a direct battle. We fight like humans. Dr. Soo-young had been working on something she called the Pandora Protocol for months. It was based on captured alien technology and human innovation, but it had never been tested. The theory is simple, she explained to the assembled leaders. We overload our FTL drives while in normal space. The explosion creates temporary rifts in space-time. Our ships can use these rifts to appear anywhere in the battle instantly. Chief Engineer Dong Hyun looked worried. The stress on our ships will be enormous. We might lose half our fleet just from the process. Better than losing all of it to the enemy, replied General Insu. The decision was made to implement the Pandora Protocol. Every human ship would have its FTL drive modified for the new tactic. The alliance partners would provide support and cover for the dangerous maneuver. Captain Mi-young was chosen to lead the first test of the protocol. Her ship, the Fierce Dragon, was equipped with the experimental modifications and sent to intercept a small Vorthak patrol. The test was terrifying and magnificent at the same time. When Mi-young activated the Pandora Protocol, space around her ship twisted and tore. The Fierce Dragon vanished in a flash of impossible light and reappeared behind the enemy formation. The Vorthak ships never knew what hit them. Before they could react, the Fierce Dragon had destroyed 2 vessels and vanished again, appearing on their other flank. It works, Mi-young reported, her voice shaking with excitement and fear. But the stress on the ship is incredible. We can only do this a few times before the hull breaks apart. As the enemy fleets approached Earth, humanity prepared for the battle of their lives. Every ship in human space was recalled to defend the homeworld. The alliance partners brought their own fleets to help. Admiral Jamin commanded the combined fleet from the battleship Iron Will. Around him, ships of 4 different species prepared for what might be their final battle. The enemy arrived exactly when predicted. Both fleets dropped out of hyperspace on opposite sides of Earth, surrounding the planet with overwhelming firepower. "This is Supreme Overlord Zarthek of the Vorthak Empire," came the broadcast to Earth. "Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick." This is prime algorithm of the Nexus Collective, followed immediately after. Resistance is futile. Your planet will be harvested. President Ji-hoon's response was broadcast across the galaxy. This is Earth. We do not surrender. We do not bow. If you want our world, come and take it. The battle began with the largest space engagement in galactic history. Over 200 ships fought in the space around Earth as the planet's 8 billion people watched from below. The enemy's plan was simple: crush the human fleet, then destroy the planet. But they had not expected the Pandora Protocol. Captain Mi-young led the first wave, her ship and 12 others activating their modified drive simultaneously. Space around Earth lit up with impossible energies as the human ships vanished and reappeared throughout the enemy formation. The Vorthak and Nexus fleets suddenly found human ships appearing inside their formations, striking at their most vulnerable points before vanishing again. Their massive ships were designed to fight enemies at long range, not deal with vessels that could teleport anywhere. Fighter pilot Chan Woo led his squadron through one of the space rifts and found himself in the middle of a Nexus construct. The machine had no defenses against attacks from inside its own hull. "All squadrons, follow my lead," Chan Woo called over the radio. "Hit them from the inside out." Human fighters poured through the rifts, appearing inside enemy ships and attacking their most vital systems. The confused aliens could not target vessels that were already past their defenses. But the Pandora Protocol came with a terrible price. Human ships were tearing themselves apart with each jump. The Iron Will lost its starboard engine after the third activation. The fierce dragon's hull was cracking under the stress. "We cannot keep this up much longer," reported Admiral Jamin. "The ships are failing." That was when Chief Scientist Jun-ho achieved the impossible. Working from a laboratory beneath Earth's surface, he had been trying to hack into captured Nexus technology for months. Just as the battle reached its peak, he finally broke through. "I am in their network," he announced over the command frequency. "I can control their weapons." On the surface of the largest Nexus construct, weapon systems that had been firing at human ships suddenly turned toward the Vorthak fleet. The massive planet-killer beam, designed to crack worlds in half, struck the Vorthak flagship instead. The sight of their enemies' weapons turning against them demoralized both fleets. Vorthak ships found themselves under attack from Nexus vessels that should have been their allies. Nexus computers tried to regain control of their weapons while fighting human ships that appeared and disappeared like ghosts. Colonel Ye-jin was leading the ground defense of Earth when the tide of battle turned. Her forces included human volunteers and alien allies, all prepared to fight to the death for their world. "Look up," she told her troops as they watched the battle from their positions. "That is what courage looks like." The breakthrough came when one of the Nexus planet killers, its systems completely compromised by Jun-ho's hacking, fired its full power into the center of the Vorthak formation. The explosion was visible from Earth's surface, a new star blooming in the darkness. Supreme Overlord Zarthek's flagship was caught in the blast. As his ship broke apart around him, he sent one final message to his fleet. "Impossible. Primitive species cannot defeat the Vorthak Empire." But they could, and they were. The surviving enemy ships began to retreat as their commanders realized they faced something beyond their understanding. Human tactics, alliance cooperation, and pure, desperate courage had turned certain defeat into impossible victory. As the last enemy ships fled into hyperspace, the space around Earth fell silent except for the cheers of the Allied fleet. "Status report," Admiral Jamin called to his scattered forces. 17 human ships lost. 43 damaged beyond immediate repair, came the response. But Earth is safe. President Ji-hoon stood in his bunker listening to the victory reports with tears in his eyes. Humanity had faced extinction and survived. More than that, they had won. But the victory meant more than just saving Earth. News of the battle spread across the galaxy at light speed. For the first time in centuries, both empires had been defeated in the same engagement. On worlds throughout the galaxy, enslaved species heard the news and began to hope. If humans could defeat both empires at once, perhaps freedom was possible after all. The rebellion was no longer just about humanity's survival. It had become something much larger, a galaxy-wide revolution that would either free everyone or destroy everything. Combat medic Da-Un was treating wounded soldiers from all 4 Alliance species when she realized what they had accomplished. "We did not just win a battle," she told her patients. "We proved that the empires can be beaten. The galaxy would never be the same." 3 weeks after the victories at New Busan, strange ships began appearing at the edges of human space. They did not attack or demand surrender. Instead, they sent careful messages asking for secret meetings. Ambassador Young Mi received the first message while working late in her office on Earth. The communication came through channels so hidden that most governments did not know they existed. "Honored humans," the message began. "We are the Kethvar. We have watched your battles with great interest. Perhaps it is time for the forgotten to remember each other." Young Mi felt her heart race as she read the words. For decades, human intelligence had suspected that other species were hiding in the galaxy's dark corners. Now they were making contact. She immediately contacted President Ji-hoon. Within hours, a secret meeting was arranged on the neutral station, Deep Space Nine, an old trading post that both empires ignored. Young Mi arrived first, accompanied by Captain Wu Jin and a small security team. They waited in the station's main docking bay, not knowing what to expect. The first ship to arrive was unlike anything they had ever seen. It looked like a bird made of silver metal, with wings that seemed to fold space around them. The ship landed silently, and a ramp extended from its belly. The beings that walked out were indeed bird-like, with feathers that shifted color in the light and large, intelligent eyes. Their leader approached Young Mi with graceful steps. "I am Skyweaver Kilthara of the Kethvar," she said in perfect human language. "We have been watching your species for many years, waiting for someone brave enough to challenge the empires." Before Young Mi could respond, 2 more ships arrived. One looked like a giant bubble filled with blue water, while the other resembled a moving mountain of rock and metal. From the water ship came the Moldai, aquatic beings with smooth skin and gentle eyes. Their leader introduced himself as Deep Current Silandra. From the rock ship came the Threshkol, powerful reptilian beings led by Stonebreaker Garthok. "We are the survivors," Kilthara explained as the 4 species gathered in the station's meeting room. "Once, there were hundreds of races in this galaxy. The empires have destroyed or enslaved most of them. We are what remains." Captain Wu Jin leaned forward with interest. "How have you stayed hidden for so long?" Silandra's voice sounded like water flowing over stones. "Each of our species developed technologies that the empires could not detect or understand. We became invisible to their sensors, unreachable by their weapons." Garthok's voice rumbled like distant thunder. "But hiding is not living. We have waited centuries for someone to strike the first blow against our oppressors." Young Mi felt the weight of history in the room. "What are you proposing?" "An alliance," Kilthara said simply. "Your people have shown that the empires can be defeated. We can show you how to do it again and again." Over the following days, the 4 species shared their secrets. The Kethvar had perfected stealth technology that made their ships completely invisible to all known sensors. Their vessels could appear and disappear like ghosts. The Moldai had mastered biotechnology and medical science. They could heal wounds in minutes and had developed organic computers that grew instead of being built. Their knowledge of life sciences was beyond anything the empires possessed. The Threshkol were master builders and miners. They could create fortifications that would last for millennia and extract resources from the most barren worlds. Their engineering skills rivaled anything in the galaxy. Most importantly, all 3 species had been studying the empires for centuries, learning their weaknesses, and planning for revenge. Dr. Su Young arrived on the 3rd day with a team of human scientists. Her eyes lit up as she saw the alien technologies being demonstrated. "This is incredible," she told Young Mi privately. "If we combine our technologies with theirs, we could build weapons and defenses that neither empire could counter." The first joint operation was planned carefully. Captain Wu Jin would lead a mixed fleet to attack a Vorthak supply convoy. The force would include human ships for firepower, Kethvar vessels for stealth, Moldai ships for support, and Threshkol vessels for heavy assault. Admiral Jamin was assigned to coordinate the operation. He had never worked with alien allies before, but he quickly learned that each species brought unique advantages. The Kethvar scouts can find the convoy without being detected, he explained to his officers. The Threshkol ships will break their defenses. Human ships will destroy their escorts. Moldai vessels will capture any survivors for intelligence. The convoy was traveling through the Vorten Nebula when the Allied fleet struck. The Vorthak never saw them coming. Kethvar stealth ships appeared among the convoy like hunting birds, jamming communications and disabling weapons. Threshkol assault ships smashed through the escort vessels with devastating firepower. Human ships targeted the supply freighters with precision strikes. In less than an hour, the entire convoy was destroyed or captured. The Vorthak had lost enough supplies to feed an army for a year. But the real victory was what they learned from the captured crews. The Moldai had developed interrogation techniques that were gentle but completely effective. They learned the locations of secret bases, supply routes, and planned operations. The empires are weaker than they appear, Silandra reported after questioning the prisoners. They have been fighting each other for so long that their resources are nearly exhausted. Meanwhile, similar operations were being conducted against the Nexus Collective. The Machine Empire was having its own problems with the new alliance. Nexus robots were programmed to fight known enemies with predictable weapons. They could not adapt to Kethvar stealth ships that appeared and disappeared randomly, or Moldai bioweapons that grew and evolved faster than computer models could predict. Admiral Jamian found himself commanding fleets of 4 different species, each with their own fighting styles and technologies. It should have been chaos, but somehow it worked. Humans are natural coordinators, observed Kilthera during one planning session. Your species thinks flexibly enough to use all of our strengths together. The alliance grew stronger with each victory. Captured Empire technologies were shared among all 4 species. Human weapons were improved with Kethvar stealth systems. Moldai biocomputers were protected by Threshkol armor. Kethvar sensors were enhanced with human targeting systems. Dr. Su Young worked with alien scientists to develop new weapons that combined the best of all their technologies. The results were beyond anything the empires had ever seen, but the most important development was not technological. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy's forgotten races had hope. Secret communication networks that had been silent for generations suddenly came alive. Hidden colonies that had been afraid to even exist began sending messages of support. We are receiving contacts from dozens of species, Young Mi reported to President Ji-hoon. Some of them we never knew existed. They have all been hiding, waiting for someone to lead them. On Earth, the news was received with mixed emotions. Humanity had gone from being alone in the galaxy to leading a rebellion that could involve hundreds of worlds. Are we ready for this responsibility? Ji-hoon asked Admiral Hyun-woo during a private meeting. Sir, I do not think we have a choice, Hyun-woo replied. If we stop now, the empires will crush us and every species that helped us. If we continue, we might actually free the galaxy. The decision was made to expand the alliance. Captain Yoonji was assigned to make contact with other hidden species. Her stealth ship, now enhanced with Kethvar technology, could reach places that had been unreachable before. Each new contact brought fresh hope and new capabilities. The alliance was becoming something that neither empire had ever faced. A united coalition of free species fighting for their survival. But unity brought new challenges. Each species had different cultures, different needs, and different ideas about how to fight the war. Lieutenant Commander Si-jun was assigned to develop protocols for cooperation between the various species. His freedom protocols became the foundation for how the alliance would operate. Every species fights according to their strengths, the protocols stated. No species is forced to do anything against their nature. All species share equally in the benefits of victory. The empires were beginning to realize that they faced something completely new. This was not just another rebellion to be crushed. This was a revolution that threatened their very existence, but they still did not understand the most dangerous thing about the alliance. It was not held together by fear or conquest, like their own empires. It was held together by something much stronger, the shared desire for freedom. As the Alliance prepared for larger battles to come, Ambassador Young Mi looked out at the mixed fleets gathering at secret bases. Ships of 4 species working together, preparing to fight for something that had been lost for centuries. The galaxy's forgotten races were remembering what it meant to be free. The Vorthak fleet dropped out of hyperspace above New Busan like a storm of crystal and light. 12 massive ships, each one the size of a small moon, hung in the darkness above the human colony. Their hulls gleamed with the strange blue fire that powered Vorthak technology. On the bridge of the flagship Crystal Dominion, Fleet Commander Kythara felt satisfaction flow through her mind. The human world below looked so small and helpless. This would be an easy conquest. She activated the communication array and sent her message to the planet's surface. Her words carried the weight of 3 centuries of galactic dominance. Primitive humans of New Busan. Her voice echoed across all frequencies. You will surrender your world to the Vorthak Empire. Your people will serve in our armies. Your resources will fuel our war machine. You have 1 hour to comply. In the planetary capital, Governor Su Jin received the message in her office. She was a small woman with gray hair, but her eyes were steel. She had been waiting for this moment for years. Open a channel to the enemy fleet, she told her communications officer. When the channel activated, Su Jin spoke in a calm, polite voice. Fleet Commander Kythara, we thank you for your offer, but we must respectfully decline. We invite you to leave our space peacefully. Silence filled the communication channel. Kythara could not believe what she had heard. No species had ever refused Vorthak demands. It was impossible. You dare refuse the Vorthak Empire? Kythara's mental voice screamed across space. We will burn your world to ash. I am sorry you feel that way, Su Jin replied. Please hold while I transfer you to our military commander. Admiral Min Ho's face appeared on the communication screen. He was sitting on the bridge of the battleship Iron Tiger, which had just moved out from behind New Busan's largest moon. Commander Kythara, Min Ho said with a slight smile. I am Admiral Min Ho of the Terran Defense Force. You have 30 seconds to leave our system before we consider you a hostile threat. Kythara's crystalline features twisted with rage. Impossible. Your primitive ships cannot threaten the Vorthak Empire. 20 seconds, Min Ho said calmly. Around the Iron Tiger, space suddenly filled with human ships. They seemed to appear from nowhere, dropping their stealth fields all at once. 50 vessels of various sizes surrounded the Vorthak fleet. 10 seconds, Min Ho announced. Kythara activated her fleet's weapon systems. Crystal cannons began charging, with deadly energy. But before she could fire, the human ships struck first. The Iron Tiger launched something the Vorthak had never seen before. Not an energy beam or plasma bolt, but solid metal projectiles moving at incredible speed. The kinetic rounds slammed into the Crystal Dominion's hull like hammers of the gods. Vorthak shields were designed to stop energy weapons. They were useless against chunks of metal traveling at 30% of light speed. The projectiles punched through the crystal hull and exploded deep inside the ship. Impossible, Kythara screamed as her ship shook apart around her. How can primitive weapons defeat our shields? All around the fleet, human ships opened fire with kinetic weapons, nuclear missiles and technologies that made no sense to alien minds. Lieutenant Hei-Wan led her fighter squadron in a swirling attack that confused Vorthak targeting systems completely. Vorthak fighters moved in careful formations, following patterns that had worked for centuries. Human fighters moved like angry hornets, striking from unexpected angles and disappearing before return fire could find them. Hei-Wan's fighter dove under a Vorthak cruiser and fired a spread of missiles into its engine section. The explosion sent the alien ship spinning out of control. Target their crystal matrices, she told her pilots over the radio. Those blue spots are their weak points. The human fighters swarmed over the Vorthak ships like insects attacking giants. Their small size and unpredictable movements made them almost impossible to hit. In space, the battle was a nightmare for the Vorthak. Their energy weapons could not lock onto human ships that kept changing direction randomly. Their psychic powers had no effect on human minds protected by simple metal helmets. But the real shock came when the humans started boarding actions. Commander Tae-hyung led his Marines onto a Vorthak destroyer through an airlock they had blasted open with explosives. The Vorthak crew expected organized assault troops following tactical doctrine. Instead, they faced humans with shotguns, grenades, and fighting knives who moved through their ship like wild animals. Tae-hyung's Marines did not follow any pattern the Vorthak could predict or counter. "Remember," Tae-hyung shouted to his troops as they fought through the alien corridors, "they can read minds, but they cannot read chaos." The Marines used random tactics, switched plans constantly, and fought with a savagery that terrified the crystal-skinned aliens. When Vorthak soldiers tried to use their psychic powers, they found human minds too violent and unpredictable to control. Within 2 hours, 8 Vorthak ships were destroyed or captured. The remaining 4 fled into hyperspace, carrying news of impossible defeat back to their empire. But the humans were not finished. While the Vorthak fleet was dying above New Busan, another human force was attacking the Nexus Collective on the other side of space. The Nexus Dreadnought calculation. Prime was patrolling the border systems when human ships appeared without warning. The machine minds of the Nexus immediately began analyzing the threat and calculating optimal responses. They calculated wrong. Commander Tae-hyung had transferred to the human fleet attacking Nexus ships. His assault team used fast transport ships to ram directly into the calculation prime's hull. The Nexus machines expected logical boarding tactics. They prepared defenses based on probability calculations and tactical algorithms. What they got instead was humans with plasma cutters and explosives who ignored all tactical logic. Tae-hyung's Marines cut through bulkheads, blew up computer cores, and fought robot soldiers with weapons that should not have worked. On the Nexus, robots were programmed to counter energy weapons and projectile weapons and cyber attacks. They were not programmed to deal with humans who used crowbars and sledgehammers to smash their way through the ship. "The machines think too much," Tae-hyung told his troops as they destroyed another computer bank. "Do not think. Just break things." The human Marines moved through the Nexus ship like a virus, destroying everything they could not understand and stealing everything they could carry. The machine intelligence tried to adapt its defenses, but human tactics changed faster than its programming could follow. When the calculation prime finally exploded, 3 more Nexus ships had already fallen to similar attacks. The surviving machine ships retreated to analyze this new threat, but their computers could not understand what they had witnessed. News of the double victory spread across the galaxy faster than light. For the first time in 3 centuries, someone had defeated both empires in the same week. On Earth, President Ji-hoon watched the battle reports with amazement and pride. Admiral Hyunwoo stood beside him, checking casualty lists that were much lower than expected. 12 human ships damaged, 43 crew members injured, no ships lost, Hyunwoo reported. "Sir, we actually won." Dr. Soo-young was analyzing captured alien technology when the victory message arrived. "The galaxy is going to be very surprised," she said with a smile. "They thought we were primitive. Turns out primitive sometimes beats advanced." But the celebrations were brief. Everyone knew this was only the beginning. The empires would be back with larger fleets and deadlier weapons. Captain Yoon-ji was already preparing for the next phase. Her stealth ships were moving toward both empire territories, gathering intelligence for the battles to come. "The empires are angry now," she reported to Admiral Minho. "They will not underestimate us again." "Good," Minho replied. "Angry enemies make mistakes, and we are very good at taking advantage of mistakes." Across human space, defense fleets prepared for retaliation. But something else was happening too. Secret messages were flowing through the galaxy's hidden communication networks. Other species had seen the impossible victories. For the first time in centuries, someone had bloodied both empires and lived to tell about it. The forgotten races of the galaxy were starting to hope. The stars were burning across the galaxy, and everyone knew why. For 300 years, 2 mighty empires had been fighting each other. The Vorthak Empire controlled the eastern arm of the galaxy with their crystal ships and mind powers. The Nexus Collective ruled the western regions with their machine fleets and computer brains. Between them, smaller races died every day. Admiral Hyunwoo stood on the bridge of the Terran Defense Station, watching the latest reports flow across his screens. Another star system had fallen to the Vorthak. Another billion lives lost to their crystal weapons. He touched the communication panel and called his most trusted officer. "Commander So-min, report to my office immediately." So-min arrived within minutes. She was young but smart, and Hyunwoo had learned to trust her judgment. Her face was serious as she entered the room. "Admiral, I have bad news from our spy networks," she said without waiting for him to speak. "Both empires are planning something big. Our sources say they want to use human worlds as soldiers in their final war." Hyunwoo felt his stomach drop. For 200 years, humanity had stayed quiet in their corner of space. The galaxy thought they were just another weak race. That was exactly what humans wanted them to think. "How long do we have?" he asked. 6 months, maybe less. The Vorthak want our people for their mind-slave armies. The Nexus wants our bodies for their machine soldier program. Hyunwoo walked to the window and looked out at Earth below. Blue oceans, white clouds, green continents, home to 8 billion humans who just wanted to live in peace. But peace was not an option anymore. "Contact President Ji-hoon," he said. "Tell him we need an emergency council meeting." 3 hours later, the most important people in human space sat around a table in the underground bunker beneath Seoul. President Ji-hoon looked tired. The weight of leading humanity had aged him quickly. "So our choices are slavery or death," Ji-hoon said after hearing the reports. "Unless we have a third option." General In-soo leaned forward. "We could fight. Our military has been preparing for this day since first contact." "Fight 2 galactic empires?" asked Dr. Soo-young, the chief scientist. "That sounds like suicide." Chief Engineer Dong-hyun smiled for the first time that day. "Maybe not. We have been studying their technology for decades. We know their weaknesses." Admiral Hyunwoo activated a holographic display. It showed the galaxy with red and blue zones marking Empire territories. A small green dot marked human space. "The empires think we are weak because we use simple technology," he explained. "No energy shields, no mind powers, no robot armies. But they have never seen what humans can do when we are angry." Captain Yoon-ji of the stealth ship Silent Thunder had been quiet until now. "My ship has been watching their fleets for months. They fight in patterns like a dance. Very predictable. We could use that against them." President Ji-hoon stood up slowly. "Are you all telling me we should declare war on both empires at the same time?" "No, sir," said Hyunwoo. "We should show them that humanity will not be slaves. If they want a war, we will give them one they will never forget." The vote was unanimous. Humanity would stand and fight. Over the next weeks, secret orders went out to every human world. Captain Yoon-ji took the Silent Thunder on long missions to spy on enemy fleets. Her ship was invisible to their sensors, using technology that worked differently from anything the empires knew. Meanwhile, Dong-hyun worked day and night in the engineering labs. Human ships began receiving new weapons and armor. They looked simple from the outside, but inside they carried surprises that would shock the galaxy. Dr. Soo-young and her team studied every piece of alien technology they could find. They learned how Vorthak mind powers worked and how Nexus computers thought. More importantly, they found ways to stop both. On the military side, Admiral Min-ho prepared the defense fleets while General In-soo trained ground forces. They practiced new fighting styles that no alien had ever seen. Human soldiers learned to think fast, move unpredictably, and never give up. Lieutenant Haewon led the first space fighter squadrons. Unlike alien pilots who followed strict battle formations, human fighters were taught to improvise and adapt. Each pilot could make split-second decisions that confused enemy targeting systems. The preparations were secret, but not everyone could hide their excitement. Commander Tae-hyung trained his Marines for boarding actions against enemy ships. They practiced with weapons that seemed primitive, but could cut through alien armor like paper. "Remember," Tae-hyung told his troops, "they expect us to fight like them. When we fight like humans instead, we win. Ambassador Young Mi worked on different preparations. Her job was to contact other small races in the galaxy. Secretly, she reached out to species that had been hiding from the empires. Many of them had been waiting for someone brave enough to lead a rebellion. As the deadline approached, Captain Yunji returned with crucial intelligence. Both empire fleets were moving toward human space, but they were not working together. Each empire wanted to claim humanity for themselves. "Perfect," said Admiral Hyunwoo when he heard the news. "Let them come separately. We will deal with each fleet one at a time." The final meeting took place on a cold morning in January. Snow was falling outside the bunker windows as human leaders made their last preparations. The Vorthak fleet will arrive at New Busan Colony in 3 days, reported So-min. The Nexus fleet is 2 weeks behind them. President Ji-hoon looked around the table at the faces of people who would either save humanity or lead it to destruction, but he saw no fear in their eyes, only determination. "Then we are ready," he said. "Send the message to all human worlds. Operation Freedom begins now." Within hours, the message spread across human space through quantum communication networks the empires could not detect. On every human world, people looked up at the stars and knew their peaceful days were ending. But they also knew something else. Humanity had been underestimated for the last time. The galaxy was about to learn that humans were not another weak species to be enslaved. They were something much more dangerous. They were a species that valued freedom above life itself, and they were willing to fight anyone who tried to take that freedom away. The Silent Thunder and her sister ships moved into position around the galaxy. Human fleets powered up their hidden weapons. Ground forces checked their equipment one last time. In space stations and planetary defense centers, human commanders watched their screens and waited. The enemy was coming, confident in their power and certain of easy victory. They had no idea what they were about to face. The galaxy had ignored humanity for 2 centuries, dismissing them as primitives with simple technology and no real power. That had been humanity's greatest advantage. While the empires fought each other with predictable weapons and ancient tactics, humans had been learning, planning, and preparing. Now the preparation was over. It was time to show the galaxy what humans could do when they stopped hiding and started fighting. The war was about to begin and nothing would ever be the same.